He cut his teeth singing in a Texas R&B band before relocating to New York at age 18. From there, he started working at a record company and found himself in the company of folks like Burt Bacharach and Dionne Warwick. He discovered singer B.J. Thomas and produced such hits as Hooked on a Feeling and Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. He wrote the song How Do You Talk to an Angel, and next moved into working on music for film and television, including Midnight Crossing and the Brady Bunch movie. But he returned to singing by chance when he performed The Way You Look Tonight in the film Father of the Bride. That led to a string of hit recordings, including one featuring the Sinatra Songbook and a Disney tribute album. Hello, I'm Ernie Manouse. Coming up on this episode of InnerVIEWS, our conversation with writer, producer, and singer Steve Tyrell. Different thrills that you receive between actually producing something or performing it?
Well, it's just two totally different experiences. You know, the thing about producing is it's like making a painting, you know, because you're in a studio and you're starting with nothing. So you walk in there and there's two speakers with nothing coming out of it. And when you finish, you've created a song and then an album, you know. So your job is to put something between the speakers. So that's a wonderful wonderful experience. Performing is a totally different thing. It has much less control. You know, you go out there and every night is different, and you can sing the same song 20 nights in a row, and it's just all about you, the audience, the performance. You know, so it's a two totally different experiences. It's like making a movie or being in a play.
Okay, but for you personally, which one gives you a bigger joy, bigger kick?
Neither. I mean, they both give you joy. Neither is better than the other. Well, that's not true. I'd say performing is up there because it puts you. It's that edge that you're on. You know, yeah. And you're walking out there, whether you're going to remember the words or not, or you know, and trying to get that vibe with the audience and the band. Everybody is like hitting on this one thing and sometimes it just like sails, man. You know, yeah. You just get in this groove and it's just effortless. And other times it's hard, you know.
Have you figured out which times are going to be effortless, which ones are going to be
no,
hard?
And you never know. And
and
they're always good. I mean, you know, you have to. I've learned you have to trust the material, and you have to trust the arrangements and the songs, and you know, and why you're there in the first place. I mean, people came to see you, so they, you know, they're coming to have a good time, not a bad one. So it's just a kind of a mind game that goes through every performer.
Are you a risk taker in life in general?
Yeah, sure. My whole life, I'd say that. You know, I mean, I'm a gambler. I mean, you have to be in the music business.
Yeah. You started so young in this whole business. If you hadn't gone into it, was there another direction you would have gone, or is this all you've known?
Well, it's pretty much all it is all I've ever done. I worked for a construction company when I was in high school. That wasn't too much fun.
And that career didn't take off, so you went this
building
way.
Streets, you know. But no, I just always kind of was interested in music and the arts and movies and television. And I've worked in just about every area that has music in it.
Yeah. As a child, do you remember certain songs that stood out that you listened to that really hooked you early on? Well,
Louis Jordan had, you know, even though I was I must have loved Louis Jordan because I had a dog called Baba Reba. You know, and you know, and as I grew up, and you know, my favorite artist of all time was Ray Charles, and I got to work with Ray, and he told me that his influence was Louis Jordan. So I'm sure he was in my soul, and of course Frank Sinatra was part of my family always, and so I always heard those great recordings, and then being an Italian. You know, kid growing up, we listened to Mario Lanza and Caruso, and you know, my cousin used to pretend he was Mario Lanza, and I would shine at all the like Thanksgivings and stuff. I would shine the spotlight on him, and he would sing opera. So I somewhere between the, and then between the blues and Italian music and Frank Sinatra and Louis Jordan comes my roots. And then as I became a performer, I was drawn more toward the great R&B singers,
Right.
like Bobby Blue Bland and Jimmy Reed even,
Explain a little bit how you ended up singing with the groups that you did when you were in your teens, actually.
I don't know. I don't know how anything's ever happened to me in my life, if you want to know the truth. My whole career, my whole life has been pretty serendipitous. A friend of mine was playing guitar in a group called CL and the Pictures in Houston, and we used to drive around, drive in his car, and I'd sing to the radio, and when I was, 15 or something, and he said, "Man, you got a good voice," and so he and I started working up songs on his guitar, and then one day I got up and sang with his band, and then from that I got a job working with that band in high school, and they were a pretty famous band in Texas in those days, and then my cousin had a club called the Swingin' Shepherd on Shepherd and I think it was West Gray, or no, it wasn't West Gray. I forgot the street, Alabama or something like that. And it was a real good kind of blues jazz club, and he had a band there called the Art Boatwright Band, and they were an all-black band. So I started singing with those guys. So I was singing in two bands, and that was it. Then I got a record deal and started making albums, and then before I knew it, I had a job I always produced my own records and other people's records. And I was fascinated by the fact you could go in the studio and help somebody else make their record. And people would ask me to do it. And so I got a job when I was 18 to move to New York as a staff producer for Scepter Records.
Right.
And I don't know how I got that either.
Was it hard to turn your back on the performing side when you went more producing?
Not really, because it's so funny how you learn things, I'm a baritone.
Really?
Yeah.
Couldn't tell.
Well, but I didn't know that. When I was a kid growing up, there was a doo-wop period, and everybody sang high, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would learn the songs because, our bands are kids. They only could play in one key. So I would always learn these songs in the original keys, and I'd have to be singing at the very top of my range all the time,
Yeah.
And I didn't know this until years later. So I'd get hoarse. And it used to really bug me because I didn't know, like, if I took a gig at a club next Saturday night, if I was going to have a voice, because I'd be way up there, and then finally, thank God, when I started singing standards again, and most of those songs are crooners, man, and they're all baritones, like Frank Sinatra's a baritone, Nat King Cole, all these guys. And I started thinking, well, these songs are easy to sing.
Yeah.
Because they were in my range. So to answer your question, no, I didn't like performing that much when I was a kid. I'd much rather produce. And so I just kind of let it slide into the background.
Now, a lot of people have no idea what a producer does. If an artist is a singer and they come in and they sing their song, what do you do?
Producer's the same thing as a director of a film. There's no such thing as, for some reason, a record producer should be called the director. There's no record director. I don't know why, but it's the same thing. You're really in charge of the entire project, the creative part of the entire project. What studios, what musicians, what arrangements, it's basically your thing for the artist. Now, some artists are more cooperative than other artists, and some just can show up and sing.
See,
and you do everything else.
I would think the big challenge would be how do you preserve their artistic voice but then bring your own image and feeling to it? Well,
it's sort of like you do in a movie. If you're directing a movie, you have a script. The actor didn't write the script, usually, He didn't do the set design. He doesn't do the cinematography. He does his performance of that piece. And it's the same in a record, He didn't write, some people wrote the song. That's what I'm saying. It's not like cut and dry, And some people are great musicians, and you just have to kind of wrangle all the best performances. But basically, the producer's job is to get the performance from everyone. Everyone.
Where do you think you hit the mark best? What do you think was one of your best produced?
For productions,
yeah.
One of my favorites that I mean, there's several I could point to, that I'm proud of, but there was a song I did with B.J. Thomas in 1970-something that was called Rock and Roll Lullaby. And it was a song about a mama the lyric, Barry Mann and Cynthia Wilde wrote the song, and the lyric was, she was just 16 and all alone when I came to be, and we grew up together, my mama, child, and me. When things were bad and I was scared, but whenever I would cry, she'd calm my fears and dry my tears with a rock and roll lullaby. And she'd sing, sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, it'll be all right. And so when Barry Mann, they're two of the greatest songwriters of all time, and good friends of mine, played me the song, he said, I'm hearing these kind of old sounds on this, like doo-wop sounds from the 60s and 50s. So I said, well, he said, something like maybe a Duane Eddy kind of guitar. So I said, well, hell, let's get Duane Eddy. So we called Duane Eddy. I think he was working in a used car place or selling cars at that point. And he flew out to New York and he played the dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong dong right in the beginning. And then I got the Ronettes and the Crystals together, and they sang sha la 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 la. And then I got the guy who used to sing with the Diamonds, David Somerville, and he sang la 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 right off that old record. And we got a hold of Brian Wilson, and we had this Beach Boy part, bum 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 bum, and we put all that stuff together, and it made this incredibly beautiful collage of old sounds that went perfectly with that song, and and it was a big hit. It wasn't wasn't number one, but it was like a top 10 pop song, and that's one of the ones that I really, really always loved. And then another one was I was working on an animated feature for Steven Spielberg called An American Tale. And it was the same, again, with my Barry Mann was my partner for many years, and we worked together for a long time. And he had written this song, Somewhere Out There, for the two mice to sing in the middle of the movie, Cynthia wrote the lyric, and he and James Horner wrote the music. So when he was in the other room playing it, I heard him. I said, man, that song's a hit, And he said, oh, no, it doesn't have to be a hit. He says, because Barry, songwriters, they're only as good as their last song, no matter how rich they are or whatever. And Barry was so happy that he had a job that he didn't have to write a hit. All he had to do was write songs that moved the story along, Right. So I said, well, that's a smash, man. And I said, we should take that song and put it over the end of the movie. We make a contemporary version. And I honestly, I suggested it to the film company, Universal at the time, and they went, oh, I don't know. They couldn't hear it, man, because it was these little mice singing, Somewhere out there, beneath the bell moonlight, someone's thinking of me. And I said, let me just make a demo of it the way I'm hearing it, And so finally they let me do it. And I said, play it for Steven Spielberg, see what he says. And he heard it, and he loved it. And they went, well, yes, of course, that's a great idea. And then we went on and did it, and it was a big hit, and it won the Grammy for the Song of the Year, Best Song for a Motion Picture. And it set the trend all the way to this day, right. Of songs over the end titles of animation, which kind of brings me to my Disney album,
And I was going to say with the Disney album, too, I think a problem with a lot of those Disney albums that come out over time is that so many of these songs, as you said, are written for a purpose in the movie.
Yeah, character-driven.
Right. So then how do you make those contemporary, interesting, stand-alone songs?
Well, for the most part, they're, if you get to the core of them, they're great songs, and they're really well written. They're just performed by the characters in the movie, and if you get my Disney album, you'll see a whole collection of how I did it.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just like it came from somewhere out there, really. Like I took that and I heard a pop record of it. I didn't hear the Mice was cute, but I heard another version. And from that sprung Beauty and the Beast, which is now on my album. And I mean, I think Somewhere Out There was the father of Beauty and the Beast, you know. And as a matter of fact, I know it was because it came the next year. And so, you know, and then The Lion King and Aladdin and a lot of songs like that, The Little Mermaid, you know. So,
when you hear a song, what tells you it's going to be a great song? Like you say, when you heard
Melody.
Somewhere Out There, you knew that would be a hit.
Ba-da-dee-da, ba-da-da-dee-da-da. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Somewhere out there, you know, it's just, it's beautiful. Beautiful melody, you know. Barry's great at that.
Yeah. Okay, take me back again. Burt Bacharach.
Well, Burt, when I moved to New York as a kid, it was right when Bacharach and David were starting their amazing run of, I mean, they had written hits before, you know, but it was when they really started their amazing run with the great Dionne Warwick songs. And I was kind of the kid on the team, you know. I was the staff producer plus promotion man for the, I mean, we would talk about the songs, and then I'd go get them played on the radio, too. We did everything in those days. And so we became very tight. And they listened to me because I was the kid, you know, and a few times I was right. And there's so many songs of Dionne Warwick's that were not written for her that people don't even realize. Like Alfie wasn't written for her. Message to Michael was called Message to Martha, you know. And a lot of things. And I'd, you know, Trains and Boats and Planes was somebody else. I'll Never Fall in Love Again was somebody else. Reach Out for Me was somebody else. So a lot of times they would do these songs first with someone else, and then we'd get back together, and Dionne Warwick would sing them, and then they'd be classics from then on, you know.
Yeah.
And no one ever remembers the first version of them.
Right.
And so Burt and Hal and I and Dionne worked together on all those songs, and I didn't realize it. I thought everybody was doing it, but at the time we really created history. And then I brought my friend B.J. Thomas, who I always thought was a great singer in Texas, and signed him to the label, and then he got the chance to sing Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, and that song won the Academy Award. Yeah. You know? So that's and Burt and I are friends to this day. I mean, he's like my mentor in a way. You know, I watched him make those records, and I worked, you know, sat there in the studio, and I watched this brilliant musician just come in and handle the situation, and you know, I learned a lot from Burt Bacharach, and I still do.
Do you ever miss those Maverick days?
Yeah, I do, because I'm not in love with pop culture right now, you know. I think there were much more chances taken, much more creative. I'm worried about pop culture, if you want to know the truth. I think it's in a kind of a funk.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, it's all about marketing and merging, and I mean, the guys that started record companies, you know, Ahmet Ertegun and Jerry Wexler and you know, Barry Gordy and people like that Florence Greenberg, who had Scepter, and Phil Spector. I mean, these were people that had vision, you know. They didn't go out and copy everything that had heard. I mean, Barry Gordy created the Motown sound. You know, Ahmet Ertegun signed Ray Charles. There wasn't anybody like Ray Charles, and Aretha Franklin, and you know, Burt Bacharach. Any song you heard, it was his. You could tell. He wasn't. Now this seems to be a world of copying. Everybody does the same thing over and over. Even the movies. It's like, I mean, who wants to see the movie version of I Dream of Jeannie? I don't. You know, it's like, come on, man, we can't think of nothing else to do.
So how do we get out of that rut?
I have no idea, because it's all about business. It's all about who can open a film, and it's just about getting together, and I can take this star and put, you know, this project together with them, and you know, and it makes sense on paper.
Right. And
so it opens, but it doesn't make a very good movie or a very good album. There's some people, but the cream will rise. I mean, there are people, like, I think Ludacris is a great group, you know.
Yeah.
They do stuff, and they fuse hip-hop with really good melodies and songs, and stuff. So somebody they will always find their way. The good artists somehow will.
You're talking a little bit about movies. I want to take you to Father of the Bride. How did your life change after that?
Well, I started working on movies when I was working with Burt Bacharach. So when I moved out to, because he got those jobs, and I saw early on you could put a good song in a movie and have a big hit, Yeah, and it was like, we did it with Alfie and Raindrops, and and I was just a baby then, but I saw, nobody was really doing that, and we were doing it over and over again. Look of Love was from a movie, and a theme from Valley of the Dolls was a big hit. All those were songs I had something to do with, as a kid. So when I moved out to California later, I got into the Barry Mann and I started this music supervision company, and we would be in all these, work on films. I thought it was a cool thing. We'd go to the set, hang out, and I enjoyed it too. And so I was working on Father of the Bride, and I told the director, I said, well, what do you want your band to play at the reception, And what kind of band do you want anyway? You want a bar mitzvah band or disco band? Because when you see a person in a movie singing or a band playing, it's always that's just one time in a film that has to be pre-recorded. So you have to figure out what they're going to do before you shoot the scene.
Right.
Most of the other music in a movie comes after the movie's shot. But if you see somebody playing, that comes before. So you got to know what kind of band it's going to be, and who's going to do it. So they said they didn't know what kind of band, but they loved the idea of doing the lyric to The Way You Look Tonight in the scene when Steve Martin walks in and looks at his daughter dancing with her husband for the first time. He wanted those words, someday when I'm awfully low and the world is cold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight. They wanted those words over that scene. So I had never sung a standard in my life. So I went back to the studio, and it would introduce me to the Great American Songbook. That song did. And I went back and I thought, well, okay, if I had a band and I was playing this reception, how would I do that song? And I didn't go back and listen to how Sinatra did it or Tony Bennett or anybody else. I just thought, let's create our own band. And so we did. We made an arrangement.
So why did you pick, though, to sing it
well,
instead of hiring someone else?
It was a total accident. I was the music supervisor, so I put the music together. So I had to pre-record the music. And it wasn't clear to me at that time who was going to sing it, because whoever it was going to be in the movie. But they were going to be the singer in the scene, So that just for some reason, just hadn't come up, or no one had thought to talk about it. So we did the arrangement, and I sang it, because without somebody singing it, you couldn't hear the arrangement, And so I did it basically as just a scratch track, So I put my voice on it, and plus I got into it. It was kind of cool, I was singing a standard for the first time. And I took it to the set, and I played it for them, for the director and the producer, on a break when they were lighting the next scene, out in the parking lot, real loud, because loud is good when you're trying to sell something to somebody. And so it was so loud they could hear it on the set. So by the time I got to the second verse, Steve Martin had walked out there, and Diane Keaton and a few of the people, and man, what's that? That's really cool. And I thought, I said, well, that's me, man. And they said, well, you got to be in the movie. I said, fantastic. Count me in. So that's how I got the job. And then I did it in the movie, and it was just a big hit in the movie. And then they decided it was such a big hit when we shot it that so many people liked it that they decided to put it over the end title and the end credits of the movie, and reprise it. And so we did it again over the end of the movie, and then it went on the soundtrack album. And then that led to me changing my career. I started getting letters. That song has been played at like 5,000 weddings.
And I'll bet that's an underestimate, too, of the number of weddings it's been played at.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, my version of it from that soundtrack album. And people started writing me, where can we get more of your recordings? And so that kind of led to me back into being a performer.
So half a dozen or so albums later, and you're still... Then the Sinatra stuff. And as I understand, as we're running out of time, of course, but the Sinatra family opened up Frank's charts and stuff to you.
Yeah,
right?
well, the Sinatra family, they've been very, very generous to me in terms of encouragement from the very beginning. Frank Jr. and Tina and the whole family, have encouraged me since my first album and on. And, to keep doing this music. And Tina comes to see me when I play. And last year they asked me to sing at the Hollywood Bowl with Quincy Jones in their father's honor when he was inducted into the Hollywood Bowl Hall of Fame. And we went to the bowl, Quincy and I, and we did Fly Me to the Moon on opening night for 25,000 people. And it was awesome. And from that came the idea of doing a whole album. And then Frank Jr. wrote the liner notes, and he sings on it with me. So it's an endorsed Sinatra-Tyrell collaboration, which I'm very, very, very proud of.
When you look back on all of this, has this been a wild ride?
Yeah. But it's cool, Beats working.
Yeah. What do you want to cover next? Musically, what would you like to do?
Well, the Disney album was something that I like the idea of doing concepts, and classic concepts. So one thing that's been going around in my mind for a long time to do is a classic country album, because I truly believe those songs are just as great and just as soulful, it changed Ray Charles's life when he did it. Right. So that's something I'd like to do. I'd like to do a blues album, maybe ballad album.
In the 2 seconds we have left, who's a producer you'd want to work with?
Oh, David Foster's a good friend of mine, and I like David's work. And we're buddies, so.
And we're out of time. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. A pleasure. Steve Tyrell.
My pleasure.
To order a transcript, call 866-652-3378 or send $6.95 to the address on your screen. Please include the name of the guest.